Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now today's video is very fun and quite honestly just peaceful. Getting outside with a quality knife, sitting outside enjoying the sun, just getting to some practice, getting to some carving, it can be very enjoyable. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here today with the Fobos knives Tier 1 BC. Now, this model has been out for a little while, an absolute stellar performer. I did have a preliminary video where I went through this in detail, and in that video, in my opinion, I was like, what does BC stand for? Is that bushcrafter? Well, this knife for me definitely strikes the balance between a fantastic camp blade, something that you're going to want to carry with you, and I have through my mountain adventures to have a nice stout blade, yet thin enough, light enough, capable enough to do a ton of the awesome tasks that you can do with a knife like this. Coupled with a gorgeous sheath, the ability just to get this around. In my opinion, this is the type of blade you want to have with you. So today, I'm just practicing some skills. If you've never tried a tri-stick, tri-sticks are definitely a great way to hone in some skills. In my particular case, I've never done one. I thought this Tier 1 BC would be an awesome opportunity to get to some practice, use this knife, get some impressions of how this will perform, and see if my theory about the BC standing for bushcrafter, well, does that come to fruition? There's only one way to find out, and that's to get into it. And so with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Fobos Knives who did provide this for this video. First start with a sharpened point, then round it out into a half sphere, going into a saddle, a 90-degree latch, diameter reduction, squared off beam, V-cut, hook, a hole, and then a sharpened edge for digging. Now you can certainly go as sharp as you would like. I'm going to take this to a fairly tight point just for the sake of the experiment, but that might be enough for a durable digging tip that you're not going to snap off entirely. It would probably need to be sharper if you were going to a spear for hunting purposes or, self-defense, something like that. But that's a good serviceable point right there for many different tasks. Just going to lighten up here and take it real gentle, because this is the point where you can really start to finesse this and just get it super nice and refined. I love the edge angle and geometry here on the BC. Very comfortable and just almost automatic. The edge geometry on this is fantastic. I do really like it. I think they got it pretty much about perfect in my opinion. And you can see here, just lightening up here, just going real gentle. You'll notice I am leveraging the finger choil, thumb over the top, and it's landing right on that squared off section right there in front of your ferro rod notch. So very comfortable to grip, and actually indexing very well in my hands. And you can see, making easy work, good and sharp. This wood is not completely hardened off yet, specifically for this, because doing a lot of carving, it would make it very difficult if it was fully hardened off. But you can see here, it's actually going very well. So now that I've worked this into a point, my next task is to actually round this out from a point now and round this out, which is actually going to aid in my ability to continue carving without jamming myself. But that to me is pretty good. Could I go sharper? Of course, but that proved its point. No pun intended, but proved its point right there. So far, very good. Just gonna take this tip and literally just work it away now, fairly aggressively, using a push cut thumb on top of that diamond, so you'll see where that flares out after your Persian swedge. And there you go. So just little push cuts here, making quick work of this, rounding off the top, taking nice bite. There is a knot right there, but not a big deal. And I'm not going to completely bowl this over, but the key would be if you had to make a spindle for a bow drill set, this would do it. So this is kind of the territory you'd be landing in for that. So I'm going to take my time and really round this out nicely and try to get myself something that would be effective for my bow drill spindle. Now, it's certainly not perfect, but I am getting to the point where this is starting to get rounded over and probably close enough for this purpose, for this test. Now, I have a lot to do. If I was going to be making an actual spindle, that would be much more round and not quite as oval in shape. But I think this might do it. And I think it would probably work if I needed it to. But in that scenario, if you're really trying to make a spindle, the more time you spend to prepare it the right way, the better the results. I'm not sure that would do it, but it would certainly be close. So now I'm carving in a saddle, which is pretty much going to be like a curved shape. It's not going to be perfect, but again, just practicing here. I'm going to go less deep than that. That's way too deep for my needs, but we'll make it happen. So first I'm going to start by basically establishing a hard edge on one side here. The knife has good leverage and a nice long handle, so I feel like I can get pretty good bite here without too much difficulty. I'm going to work it on both sides. This does not have a lot of room to work handle-wise on this end, so I need to be very careful. This is going to be awkward, and it puts my hands in harm's way, unfortunately. So gonna go off camera here, make a couple little marks here down on the ground, and then come back and we'll get at it. I'm not a very big fan of working down on my lap. However, you do kind of need to use an alternate grip here. And for me, I'm kind of just using the knife very carefully and specifically to carve and plane. Just being very careful to not get too close down to the meat of my legs. I'm staying out of the inside, which is the triangle of death. I'm staying more towards the outside of my leg here, just in case something was to go wrong and slip. And the other thing is, you'll notice my finger is towards the back side of that finger choil, so I know where the edge of that blade is, so I don't accidentally get bit while I work. So that finger, for me, is kind of like a guide while I'm working here. And I'm just going to kind of scoop away at this, just a little bit at a time. Going to have to take this and flip it around in a couple of different directions here. And I can tell you, this is not going to be easy, but that's why we're out here practicing and leveraging this Fobos Knives BC. So, pretty cool. So I'm coming close, a little more, not too bad. That's mostly rounded out. I didn't want a V-notch. I really did want this to be a saddle, so I'm using the belly of the knife and really trying to bowl this out to the best of my ability. So as I have this here, really trying to pay attention and go slow right on the belly. Just real nice, dainty little curls here. Just planing that away using good amount of control. Really does require patience if you try to get this the right shape. It is going to require very minute and just simple little carving tasks here, but over time it will come. And again, although not perfect, I'd say that's good enough for this test. And that would be useful for something if you were making a pack frame or something like that. Next, I need to make a 90-degree latch. So this is going to be a 90-degree latch through this section. It would be useful for traps, things like that. Anytime you need like a trigger mechanism for a trap, that would do it. To get this started, I am taking a little bit of a risk. But basically in this section, I'm going to baton just a nice, hard, flat line. Pretty much through that top section. And then the bottom here. So basically, this is going to be the deepest section here. And it's going to angle up. So as long as I'm careful and get this started, and I should be able to work this right down to that hard edge. And this is going to be a flat, straight line right down to here. So it's going to be a bit of work, but shouldn't be too big of a deal. Now this is where having a good straight edge is definitely going to help, as I basically am planing down through this flat section here, and then when I get to that edge, getting my flat edge and just bearing down, and that's going to cut away that excess. I'm going to work towards the deepest part first and kind of establish the back edge of this on a nice flat straight plane. And as long as I'm careful, you'll see that's going to start to take shape. I don't want to go too deep on this side, only on this side. Continuing to work my way down, you can see that V-notch definitely taking shape. Now, pretty much what I'm doing is I'm leaning on this back here, getting my thumb, and just finding that nice straight edge. And now that I've got this established, pretty much just working down that same angle to the best of my ability until I get to the end here. Just kind of using it, and I'm not going to say necessarily like a chisel, but that's kind of the idea a little bit. Trying not to twist the knife too much because I don't want this to, bowl out on me. I really want this to be a nice, flat, straight plane to the best of my ability. And I am not great at this. And then when I get to the end, you kind of got to bear down, try to get a nice, sharp, straight edge, which is easier done on the ground or on a hard surface, but you get the idea. Again, just leveraging that nice straight portion of the blade. It is a subtle recurve. You can see very subtle, but pretty straight all things considered. And at this point, for testing purposes, I'm going to call that good enough. That should be close to deep enough for most things. Now, I'm not an expert, and I don't make traps ever, but I would have to expect that's going to be getting pretty close. I could keep going, but I got a lot more to do here. Now, in all reality, I probably won't have enough time to finish this entire thing. However, I am going to do a couple more, I would say, techniques that are unique. So at this point, we've done the sort of full bowled out notch. Now you can imagine that a V-notch is going to be very similar, only with straight edges. I've already demonstrated straight edges here, so leveraging that 90-degree angle latch, and you've kind of already seen that. So mix the two together, and that's going to get you that V-notch. Now, I am going to do the reduction. So this is going to basically be like a dowel in between, these sections. So the entire thing needs to be thinned out, and that's going to be a little bit tricky. So I figured that would be a good one to practice. So this might be the last one that we do here, but even with that, let's give it a try. And so similar to before, I just batoned down and around each one of these edges to pretty much establish my edge and to score it, leveraging the knife and just kind of getting that edge started. Now this has to be pretty much straight down on both sides, an equivalent amount. So I'm just going to start by finding my edge and just planing away straight down and establishing that edge to the best of my ability right on that line, and kind of working away here to thin this out. And that's going to be how this whole thing starts. And as I keep working my way, starting each time right down and on that line, and it should thin that out pretty much in the exact same spot all the way around, and as I work my way down thinner and thinner. But I've never really quite done this before in this particular fashion, and so this is going to be a nice learning lesson for me. But getting both sides established here, equal and even, hopefully that will help me in the end. It's now coming down to pretty much the end. I'm not going to go much past this. You could certainly thin this out if you needed to. For me, this proves the concept. I've basically just been working the edges down, so slowly but surely just getting on these edges, trying to square them up to the best of my ability, just trying to keep it fairly square, at least a little bit there. Not perfect, but also not too bad. Just kind of working my way as I go, just right down on those edges. And then what I found was a real nice little technique, sort of an alternate grip here. And just really slowly and smooth, just kind of planing at this here and working my way back into this sort of relief cut here. And that's helping to really kind of just manage my little cuts here without going too deep, smoothing this out. It's just taking a long time, but it's one of those things where it only takes literally one wrong move and you either blow past your edge and chunk it out, or you carve too deep. And this is one of those things where one shit kind of wipes out all your attaboys. So just going real slow and steady here, going this way, real slow, real steady, just pushing right into that relief edge. Again, my ability to work down, I did find it's certainly much safer to work this way, pushing down, really digging out that edge, and that's going pretty well. So to me, proof of concept wise with the BC, this right here is at least an hour's worth of work, as simple as it seems. This stuff takes a while. And I think you can see at this point, this knife definitely can and wants to do it. I'm very happy with the overall comfort. I do have to say, comfort in the hand, fantastic. The fact that it has a slightly thinner handle has worked out great for a lot of these grips without fatigue. I'm not using a ton of pressure. It's mostly finesse. So having that thin handle has really worked out very well, and I've been able to do a lot of these different tasks due to the different shapes in the blade and kind of angles you can get. And I would say that for the most part, this is a great length for this. I did find that it's slightly long, and I do tend to push a little bit on some of the swedge, so tiny little bit of fatigue on the thumb, but not a big deal. And in fact, I'd prefer something of this size to be sort of multi-purpose and cross-capable to other tasks. It's not just for the carving, but I did really want to see if this BC could do this stuff. And man, I mean, it does it real nice. And look at how just easy this thing's carving. Super simple, perfect, and definitely doing a nice job. So even though I was attempting, a full tri-stick today, I think you realize this stuff just takes a real long time. And as I mentioned, the knife definitely proved it can do it. What a beautiful little blade. And so, all right, guys, there you have it. A look at the Tier 1 BC from Fobos Knives. Just a gorgeous blade. I love this. Fantastic performer, comfortable in the hand, nice thin profile, yet stout enough that you can do some of these tasks. Now, it's not like I put this thing to any serious hard use, but it definitely shows that you can do some of those finer tasks, the cooking tasks, things that for me are really indicative of what you might use a quality bushcraft knife for. So in reality, for me, generally, food prep, fire prep, things like that, little camp tasks, the things you're gonna need. But if you definitely needed a knife that can do some of those finer tasks, this will absolutely do it. Not only do you have an awesome blade shape and that fantastic carry system, but the steel here, MagnaCut, the edge, still hair-popping sharp. And even when you're twisting and some of the things that you're going to do to kind of, work that blade, no problem. The coating holding up magnificently. This knife is absolutely awesome. I love this, and I can say I definitely highly recommend it. And so again, to the people at Fobos, thank you so much for providing this for this video. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there. So if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.